Who Wants to Live in New York? That theme song from Merrily We Roll Along. I do. I want to live in New York. I do live in New York. Welcome back to Beyond the Green Room after our 3-week hiatus so that your host could do a little work in the theater. This is our weekly brunch time chat show of all things theater, and I'm so glad to be back on this very exciting weekend. I have 3 marvelous guests to introduce to you, and they're from 3 very distinctly different areas of our business. So without further ado, I would like to bring them on. The first is a beautiful lady who is one of the foremost casting directors in the New York area. Theater and film, my friend Allison Frank.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, and our second guest is a theater and TV and film actor who I'm sure you will recognize. If you ever turn on your television set, you will recognize him. My friend Stephen Houck.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hi, Allison.
And last but certainly not least is the gentleman that you just heard tickling the ivories with that Sondheim tune, a music director and a coach, probably the foremost coach of musical theater talent in New York. And most importantly, for those of us who love musical theater, he is an archivist for forgotten musicals. And we owe him a great deal of gratitude for that, those of us who just love musical theater. Please welcome Michael Levine.
Thank you so much, Steve, and I'm grateful so glad to be here.
Good. So we play a little game here on Beyond the Green Room to start the conversation every week. And I guess it puts you all on the spot just a little bit, but it opens up the conversation and we get the ball rolling. I'm going to ask each one of you. It's we call the game 1 Degree of David Edwards in my very humble way. So I want to ask you, what is your recollection of how we know each other, how we first met? And it may not be the same one that I have, so that's where the fun comes in. So, all right, Allison, you were alphabetically first, so.
Well, I know exactly when I met you. I was an actress once upon a time, and I was doing the national tour of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with a man named Hans Friedrichs. And you came to visit. I think you guys were dating at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And we both went to see a production of a show. We were in Fort Lauderdale, and we went to see a production of a show called Schlemiel the First. And I remember Paul Sand was in it, and Marilyn Sokol.
I know you're exactly right that's where we met. I have no idea or remembrance of going to see that show, but
you were there.
But
yeah.
Yes, I definitely was there. I came down and spent a week in Fort Lauderdale and got to see you several times on stage. So yes.
But I haven't acted in that was my last time acting.
Really?
I'd done that tour previously, and then I did it again in that year. I don't want to say how long ago this was. And then I decided I wanted to be in casting, and I started interning at Johnson Lift casting right after that.
Wow.
Well, and then I saw you in The Producers, which I don't know that you know that I saw that production.
No.
You were on tour in Boston. I'm from Boston, and I saw you in The Producers. I had some friends in that tour, so I went to go see it. And then I met you at an audition a few years later.
Yeah. Well,
several auditions.
You've done the whole history of our relationship right there. It's more than I could have asked for, but that's great. I want to get back to some of that in a minute. But
sure.
Okay, Steve, it's your turn.
Well, it's branded on my memory, of course, because every night I got to hear you sing "Sorry, Grateful." And it was a production of Company, obviously, 1991 at the old Harold Clurman Theater on Theater Row.
Yeah. That's it. That was definitely it. And it was the time when Sondheim shows weren't being revived as frequently in New York as they are now. And so if you just threw a ball at a Sondheim show, you were going to
Yes.
using my metaphors, but you know what I mean. Everybody in New York wanted to come and see it. I think we only ran a couple of weeks, and everybody I knew was asking for tickets, and I said, I can't. The one thing I remember about that most at that time period is while we were performing the show, I was rehearsing a very heavy play off Broadway. So I would come from rehearsal, and after having it was a play about the founding of the first integrated church in the South after the Civil War. And there was a lot of back and forth. I was playing a bigoted Southern cracker using lots of not very pleasant language. And so I would spend all day in this atmosphere of angst and pain, and then become one of these sophisticated New Yorkers singing Sondheim music in the evening. And it's a wonder I didn't get them mixed up. But anyway, that's what I remember the most about that. And, and Michael, you're on.
Well, before I get to myself, can I ask you, was that company with Jay Lessiger and Tom Kleba?
That was.
So I actually did a Sondheim review in 1991, early 1991, at the Harold Clurman with Jay and Tom. It was a Stephen Sondheim evening, the one that they did at Sotheby's originally in the Whitney. And I remember in late 89, I guess late 90, going to the remember the Novotel across from where Jersey Boys played? That it's probably still there, but I was playing cocktail piano, and it was the most wrong job. And they were like little hors d'oeuvres. I would like live on the hors d'oeuvres. But Jay and Tom came to interview me, to meet me there. I think Dean Johnson, if you know Dean X Johnson, who was a pianist back then, is long gone, but he recommended me to them, and I played, and they said it went great, and they said, okay, we'll do this. So the men were taken from the Gay Men's Chorus, and then we cast three incredible, wonderful women. And if guys like your show, we sold out. It was impossible. We extended it. And Sondheim was doing Assassins at the time, but he had broken his leg and he couldn't come to our dress rehearsal. So we made a tape of the dress rehearsal and sent it to him. And then Jay and Tom called me over to listen to the phone, where he said, tell Michael he did a terrific job. I said, wait, can I listen to that again, please? And then he called me, and I actually still have the 90-minute conversation with me and Sondheim where he said, well, Michael, you played a wrong chord there. I said, I'm sorry, Steve. I promise I'll get that right tomorrow. And I'd known him for over 10 years at that time. I've known him since for 40 years. But the first time where he was really calm, he said, that guy who plays Pseudolus is terrific. And that girl will get twice the applause if she can belt the last note of What More Do I Need? He said, why don't you take it down? I said, take it another key. He said, well, you can't transpose, Michael? I said, no, I can transpose it, but it's the right key. He said, I know. So I remember that so well. And then Tom and Jay became dear, dear friends. And I went to a lot of their other shows. I probably saw the company because it was their next thing. I think they did after the Sondheim thing, but I didn't know you then, David. I mean, I can name where I think I remember you most from one name, which is George S. Irving, because seeing Roy the Grease Paint, I went, who is that guy? I mean, of course, I knew George and I love George, but it's like, who is that guy? He's amazing. I want to meet him. And I think I'm sure I met you that night, but it was just like adulation. I was just like, you're really good. Okay, I'm going to go now. Okay. But then it wasn't until years later that I really got to know you a little better when you came over here and we did a little recording. But
and I knew you mostly by your sterling reputation as a coach. And because I think you know that I recommend audition material for people, but I do it mostly through the recordings in my library. And at the time, I'm developing a bigger library of scores, but at the time I had very little. So if I couldn't find the score, the go-to was call this guy because he's got everything. And
I would often get phone calls or emails from people with your list of songs that you recommend. I'm like, wow, where did he come up with these? How did he know to recommend these songs? These are great ideas. I was like, very cool. They're cool.
Well, I appreciate that. So it's great. We've had, I appreciate your saying what you did. We have a mutual admiration society as
Definitely
musical theater mavens for many years. And, I just read something on Facebook today. Ron Fassler wrote an article about George S. Irving. We miss him terribly. He was in that production. I'll never forget because it's lovely that you remembered me so well. I would get all the old ladies liking me, but all the young girls were crazy about George.
Of course,
that was the thing.
And Allison, did you cast him in She Loves Me? Were you there then? That was before you.
No, I was there. Yeah,
I thought you were there. I was going to say.
But I mean, like, George doesn't have like an audition.
Right, of course. You said, do you want to do it? Right, exactly, of course.
We did like 4 shows when I was there.
I know. I mean, I used to see him in lots of things. I saw him definitely other things there. But I remember he lived across 2 blocks away in the same complex that my sister lives in at Lincoln Towers. He was in the next building to hers. And he would say, Michael, I keep walking by your place. Can I come over and we can just like sing through songs? I said, let me think about it. Yes, of course. Wow. So he would come over and we would play through all kinds of he would talk about his stuff and his days, and he signed every piece of sheet music, of course, in my apartment, which is a very recurring theme you'll hear today about people being in this apartment and signing everything in my apartment. But I loved, and do you remember, I don't know, David, if you were part of the concert that Mel Miller did to honor George?
Yes, I was. I had terrible tendinitis because I was rehearsing for the producers. As you know, if you work for Susan Stroman, you dance from the minute you walk into the studio and I was not a dancer, I was the actor. And of course, the way they worked is that if anyone in the number made one mistake, we'd go back to the beginning and perfect it.
Oh my God.
So I was suffering from such tendinitis, I didn't think I could walk. And I do remember because it was for George's birthday celebration. And after feeling ancient because I could barely walk, I felt very young after that evening because I was the only one on the bill. Let's put it this way. The other folks were...
I'll tell you who Mel asked me to play for. She said, Michael, I want you to work with Dodie Goodman. So Dodie Goodman came over here and she had been doing this shtick where she sang South America Take It Away, which is a Call Me Mister, a show that George was in, and she has these big pearls that are around her body, and she gets stuck in them. So Michael, I need your help. So I would come out from the piano, then I would get stuck in them too, and we'd be on the stage doing this shtick she'd been doing for years. And after that, Dodie kept coming over here, and any like 16-year-old student who, no matter how old they were, I'd said, Dodie Goodwin, ding, 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 in the movie of Grease, and they'd all go, yes, I know who she is. I mean, the youngest kids, everybody. And she would get here early and talk with my doorman, and the handyman would sit with her and chat in the lobby. But that was, of course, the average age of the person who was performing. Dina Merrill, there were really cool people.
Carlisle, and but so, Allison, you cast the Roar of the Grease Paint at. You didn't do that one?
No, that was before my time.
But I think that was the one you were talking about. That I don't know.
No, he just asked me, but She Loves Me.
That's one of the shows that he did there.
No, I started in 19. I started in the year 2000.
So you just missed Follies,
I was there from 2000 when I saw Follies. I was there from 2000 until 2010. I went and saw a bunch of shows before then, though, but I didn't see Roar of the Grease Paint. But I saw the poster every day.
Well, when we did Roar of the Grease Paint, George had already done Roar of the Grease Paint at Paper Mill, and we were doing musicals tonight. So of course we had a book in our hands, and we didn't have to memorize it. But George would, right before he'd go on, he'd say, I've never done this before. I've never seen this scene before. We couldn't have done this in at Paper Mill. I said, George, you must have, So he'd say, I don't know if I can go on. It's like standing at the foot of Everest. And then he would go out and he would be the youngest person on the stage. And he lived in my grandparents' building when I was a kid. And I used to see him in the elevator with his wife, Maria Kornilova. And my little brother didn't know from musical theater, but he knew from Underdog and the voice, yeah. Yes. So I would point him out, and years later I got to work with him. So speaking of people that because George did so much work on television, and he resented a little bit that people remembered him for that Heat Miser thing rather than all the work he did in the theater. And Steve, you've done so much work in the theater, but you're one of those guys that if you turn on your television set, there he is again. So you're in the enviable position, I think, of a New York theater actor who gets to work on film and TV a lot, and then you can take all those off-Broadway jobs you want without having to worry about paying the rent.
Right. That's been a major asset to have that. But the other thing too is you have to sit around waiting for because if they want you for one day on a TV show and you're in a play, and it's that horrible feeling of, oh, I don't have an understudy, I can't take this job, and yet it will pay. So it is sort of a balancing act, because the theater is my home, it's my love, it's my passion, and but theater. Getting these residuals, during the pandemic has been a godsend, and the exposure that you get, and someone just saw me on Madam Secretary and, took a screenshot of it and sent it to me. So, it's a wonderful thing too, to know that people are seeing you long after you did the work and long way away from where you did it. So I'm grateful. Overall, I'm so grateful to be able to do both. Yes.
Well, I got a check for $3 recently for something.
Really?
About 20 years ago. I think I got a dozen eggs with it. So it does help a bit. But actually, before we go any further, I'm sure our audience would love to see you at work. So we have some clips of some of the TV stuff that you've done recently. So I guess Tony's going to be ready with that. We'll look at a little bit of Steve Houck at work on the small screen. Well, a little bit bigger than this screen, but yes.
I was locking up, but she was staying to paint the sunset. Oh, God. What? On my way to the subway, I saw him cycling into the park.
Who's him? The guy on the bike?
Yeah, Central Perv.
Central Perv?
That's what some of us call him. He's homeless.
Doesn't make him a perv.
Except when he's leering at women or stripping naked to bathe in the pond. You ask him to stop, and he yells how he's going to shove his handlebars up various parts of your anatomy.
Listen to me. You're being hypnotized by Jervis Tech. You don't want to press that button.
But I have to. He's depending on me.
Bruce!
Hand me the detonator.
I want to, but I can't.
Miss Lennon was unhappy with your coat.
How should I get it back to her?
She's worn it twice. It's yours now. Do you need a car?
No. Thank you, Dawes. This has been a gas.
It has, miss. Goodbye.
First major media company with a woman at the helm. I like the optics. I motion we remove Stanley Austin as CEO, effective immediately, and appoint Kitty Montgomery, CEO.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is with great pride that Canada joins the U.S., Greenland, Russia, and China in this groundbreaking, or maybe we should say ground-freezing, initiative to protect our permafrost.
How the hell did this happen? My face is all over the news. You better get me out of Beijing. The Chinese are looking for me. It's only a matter of time before...
Hey, wait, please, the recording isn't real. It's all some kind of frame-up. It was released by a man called the Caretaker. That's who you have to find, the Caretaker. Help!
Miss Schmidt, I'm going to need to wrap this up. The birdhouse. I'm giving it to my granddaughter as a birthday gift, which means I need to go buy gift wrap before Pat's Crafts closes, which means I'm going to need to wrap this up.
Granddaughter? Really?
I'm telling you, young actors out there, or actors, who are not so young, who don't have a good demo reel. That I'm sure Allison would agree with that. That is one heck of a range, and very entertaining. We didn't even have to see what the shows were, but I think everybody's a big fan of Dawes, though.
Oh, Dawes is. It's been so much fun. Jane Lynch is exactly what you would hope she is. Just so down to earth. Amy Sherman, great. Rachel. Now, Alex Borstein, she's a little bit like Susie, I have to say. She's got that edge. I mean, tell it's an act, but it isn't really. She has a kind of a crusty, you know, and we were standing waiting to go on, and she said, "Oh God, this is taking fucking forever." And I said, "Well, yeah, but we get overtime." She goes, "I don't get overtime. The more I work, the less I make." I said, well, Alex, your life is tough, right? She goes, I know. So anyway, but it's been a fun show, and season 4 is in the works. I'm supposed to shoot an episode in January.
Wonderful.
So Mrs. Maisel is returning. Yes.
Well, it's keeping all of our morale up right now. We all look to whatever we can for new material right now.
Yeah.
And thank goodness the film production is starting up again here in New York, but we're being super careful. I mean, I've not had so many swabs stuck up my nose in the last 6 weeks, in maybe forever, probably.
Yeah.
You know, they're being very careful so that we don't shut down. Would that we could be able to do that with theater. Right now. Allison, you're casting a film though right now, aren't you? And a musical film.
Yeah, it's an ultra low budget. It's going to be shot out of this company in the Boca Raton, Palm Beach area, and it's like this production company that works with kids all the time. And they got some people to give them some money to do a feature film that's called Teenage Musical. That's the name right now. I don't know if that's going to remain the name, but I think it is. And it's pretty dark and interesting, and still casting it right now, going through thousands of videos because I want to find the right people. Because I can.
Well,
because I can, you know.
Steve and I are available, but it doesn't sound like it's right.
No.
I can play teenager. Come on, and you can play tween. Really? You know?
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are parent roles there, but I think that there's going to be some locals probably.
I'm sure.
But I don't know. I mean, we're still ironing out who the lead kids are or young adults. I'm not sure exactly I'm actually looking for real teenagers. So some roles may be over 18, but I'm leaning more towards. And there's so much talent out there.
Yeah.
And it's also an age where they usually avoid casting it.
Yeah.
Because they can cast over 18 to cast 16 to 18. But if somebody really wants to find a 17-year-old, they exist. And they're quite good. You know,
I just did I'm sorry.
Allison, are those people submitted to you from agents, or do you find them on YouTube, or where do you? Yeah.
Both. I mean, I'm looking everywhere, and I'm still like going through everything, like with a fine-tooth comb. It's been really exciting. Yeah. And there's some younger parts too, like some under 12, I guess. I mean,
well, we want to show a little clip of you at work too. Working with kids again too, and I think our audience will find this quite entertaining. And
you got this.
Well, you know, we have our ways.
So we have come to the end of the line after this amazing journey trying to cast this. So let's start with the big question. Who's our Ralphie?
Well, the good news is I think we have two really viable choices. I'm completely won over by the sweetness and lovability of Evan.
Every year I wait up to hear the ho, ho, ho.
My heart just completely opens up to this kid. Colton, who's the first boy we saw today, has intellect. And I think that there is an intellectual side to Ralphie, a very sort of thoughtful, psychological side.
And he's grown tremendously. He came to me in a pre-screen, even weeks before you even saw him.
So we stand guard up at my window. I'll protect the neighborhood so outlaws are always outdone.
And I sort of fell in love with him, I won't lie, because of the dimples and energy, and he's sort of funny, and he's kind of winning, but without being too winning, you know what I mean? He still has that insecurity.
Right. But he's extremely comfortable in what he has. Right. It never felt like it was put on. This one too. He has won me over. I gotta say, he surprised me.
Are you comfortable with both of these boys' voices? So like every night, if one of them is the 6-show Ralphie or the 4-show Ralphie, or
Cynthia had, a half hour, 45 minutes with these kids to work with them, but matching.
And I barely even touched technique with these two kids because they had so much natural good technique that I went right to interpretation and phrasing and musicality. So there's a lot we can do with them.
they sing the song, the opening song, right?
They sing the entire 10-minute opening.
Right. That's what,
Then they go right into Red Ryder BB Gun. They go right into Ralphie to the Rescue.
Right. Who's the better singer for Ralphie?
If you said we have to have a Ralphie do 8 shows a week, I'd be comfortable with either one of these kids.
There's historically, I think, only been one Ralphie that has been cast. Now, actually, it's up to the director to pick the Ralphie.
It just goes.
They're all in their teens now, those kids.
Well, if you've never been in on a casting session like that, it's very interesting to see how that works. And of course, it hasn't been often, but I have been in for projects that you've cast, and it is to your credit that you always are in there rooting for the actors and give us as much information and make us feel as comfortable as possible and be as encouraging. And you would think that every casting director does that, but
I would think, but at the same time, you want to listen to what the team wants. Your decision isn't the one that matters. You have to think about what they want. And often you think that there's a great decision to be made and they're not going to make it. And you just have to take that and accept that they're not happy with everybody, and you got to go back and you got to bring more people, and maybe eventually they'll warm up to the person that you initially had in mind, and maybe they won't. And that's okay. Just because you're not the director. You're there to help them.
Well, you do a great job. I often wonder what the journey is to someone to go into casting. And you said that show that I saw you in was the denouement, so to speak. After that, was this part of your master plan, or what started you on that journey?
You mean to become a casting director?
Yeah.
Well, I always was kind of casting like things in my head, like before the auditions, who should play this part, or what if we fantasy cast Into the Woods? I would do that every day in college. And then I just aged myself a little bit. And then I and then I started helping people casting, because I was out of school. I went to a place called Playhouse on the Square in Memphis, Tennessee, and I became an acting intern there. And part of the program was you were an intern in other aspects of, you were a performing intern, but you also had to work in another aspect of the theater. So some people worked in costumes. I can't sew. Some people worked in sets. I'm not good with tools. So I ended up in the administrative offices, where I was like working in the box office and working in subscriptions, but I also helped the artistic director run auditions. And that actually was up my speed and coming up with ideas, because the talent pool was what the talent pool was, and using the interns and how you could cast this, that, and the other thing. A lot of times I was trying to do it for my own benefit to get a part I wanted. Didn't always work out. But part of the reason I stopped acting was because I was much better at telling other people what to do than I was at telling myself what to do. I took a Craig Cornelius class when I first came into the city, or a year after I'd been in the city. And I remember these amazing kids were in my class, and I was like, oh, there's an audition for Evita tomorrow. You should go in for it. And then she'd book it. It was like, the matinee Ava. I was like, you've got the look and the voice to be Evita. And she booked it. It was like that sort of thing would kept happening.
And Michael, you probably have coached more people to jobs.
Well, I actually was Craig's main pianist for the 25 years he taught for many. I don't think I played when you were there, Allison.
No,
but
it was Fran. It was Fran.
I was Fran's sub originally, but going back from the late 90s until Craig stopped playing. And Craig's actually stayed here in my apartment a lot when I'm out of town, and we're in touch quite often. But it was a great class. I always say there would be, 3 Glindas, 2 Elphabas, and a Bach in every class. And, we would always know, you'd see the crowd of the crowd, truly. But that's how I got to know Sutton was in the class when Millie first got postponed. There are all these people I got to know from the class that would often lead to coaching these great people. It's what happens. But, Allison said something that I want to harp on for a second, because she said the words, "because I can." And I'm actually doing a concert this Saturday for the American Popular Song Society, which used to be the New York Sheet Music Society. And it's of the works of Lou Spence. I don't know if any of you guys know who Lou Spence was. He's best known for writing the song Nice and Easy, the Frank Sinatra standard, and That Face, not the one from the producers, but the famous one from the 60s. And he was a good friend of mine. He died maybe 13 years ago, but we're doing a concert. And he wrote with this great composer, a lyricist, maybe Tom Tose, wonder Toce. And Tom and I are producing this show together. And Tom wrote a song with Lou called "Because I Can." So when Allison said that words, I was like, oh my God, Allison, you said the name of a song. And it's this lovely song that Lou said, he said to Lou, "Why do you do this?" He said, "Because I can." So I'm writing a song about it. And that's what you'll be hearing Tom sing that song. But we have KT Sullivan and Steve Ross and Eric Comstock, a lot of great cabaret people, but also Broadway people. I did a concert actually a few weeks ago for the same society that I'd love you guys to see. You can find it on their website. It's the American Popular Song Society, so APSSMYC, and it's the works of Arthur Siegel. I'm riffing off you, David. You can come back to me and ask me questions, but Arthur Siegel was a great composer in the 50s, 60s. He wrote all the New Faces. If you remember, there were these reviews in the 50s and the 60s called New Faces of 52, 56. And they gave the starts to people like Paul Lind, Alice Ghostley, Melvin Brooks, when he was Melvin Brooks, and lots of other people. And Arthur lived across the street from me in the same building that Betty Comden lived in. And also Ellen Sturm. Do you know who Ellen Sturm is, David? Anybody here? Ellen Sturm is Ellen of Ellen's Stardust Diner, and she was a former Miss Subway. Well, she was a Miss Subways back in the 60s, and I used to coach her in her apartment. So I was in all three apartments, Betty's apartment, and Adolph, was a dear friend of mine. And Adolph would call me and say, "Michael, it's Adolph Green. I'm over at Betty's. It's raining out. Can I come over?" I'd be like, "Sure, come on over." And he would kibitz with my last student of the day. And when Follies was at Paper Mill, my sister had a car in Times Square, so I would go to the garage and meet Adolph there and drive him out to see Follies. And I remember us standing outside. Phyllis Newman shared the dressing room with Ann Miller, and Adolph would go, "Come on, Phil, we got to go." And Ann Miller would say, "Hold your horses, Adolph. She'll be right out." But so many wonderful stories with Adolph. We did so many things. He'd say, "Let's go to La Chinoise." La Chinoise was Shun Li, the fancy Chinese restaurant. And we were sitting there. We went there many, many times. And one time this guy came up and said, "Are you the Adolph Green?" And he said, "Well, I'm an Adolph Green." And he said, "Well, I'm the Joseph Heller." And it was Joseph Heller. And he sat with us and we talked about Columbia, because I'd gone to Columbia. I was in Barack Obama's class. Did I ever tell you that, David? My classmate, Barry. And Janine Tesori also.
Two of you guys, but this is when we get together.
It's like this, right?
It's like being inside a pinball machine. And I know this one and I know that one. And yeah.
But the Arthur Siegel thing is, Arthur used to come over here with Steve Ross. You all know Steve Ross, the cabaret pianist singer. And I had a friend, I don't know if any of the three of you knew him, but Stephen, you might have known Roger Sturdivant. Roger was, if you remember, it was McCorkle Sturdivant. He was Pat McCorkle's partner for a long time.
I met him shortly before he died, I think.
He died in 2003, and he was a very close friend of mine. He was a casting director for McCorkle Sturdivant was like the precursor to Johnson Lift. They were the big, legit casting directors in the 70s. Yeah. And Roger then went to do commercials and made a lot more money doing voiceover casting. And Roger and Steve and Arthur would come over here and go through my sheet music when I first moved to this apartment over almost 30 years ago. And we'd just be going through the sheet music, and Arthur would say, "Oh, I need a copy of that." And Arthur had been collecting since he was 12 years old. When he died in 1994, people like Richard Rodgers and Julie Stein would give him songs and say, "Here, would you make our songs famous by singing them in piano bars?" before the show came out. And he had been, so it was a whole day of carting file cabinets over here when I got his music. And that's one of the reasons my collection became so big in the first place, because of Arthur's collection. And I did this, so I decided to pay tribute to him and do this concert. And one of the best things about the concert, amazing performances that I played for some of them. But if you know Sandy Stewart is a great jazz singer. Her husband was Moose Charlap, who wrote Peter Pan. And her son is Bill Charlap, one of the great jazz pianists of all time. So Bill does a lot of work for Steinway. So around 3-4 weeks ago, Steinway gave Bill Steinway Hall, and with 2 cameras, and she sang this gorgeous song that she used to tour with Arthur, so she knew Arthur. Kay Ballard used to tour with Arthur also. And we have her amazing performance. We have great performances from a lot of people. So if you guys want to see a great show with songs, you won't know any of them except maybe Love is a Simple Thing. That was Arthur's hit from New Faces.
Love is a simple thing.
Thank you. Well, actually, funny that you're doing Eartha, because well, I actually have Tanya Pinkins singing Monotonous, which was the Eartha Kitt song that was made famous in New Faces of 52. Tanya sang it with Eartha at Carnegie Hall shortly before Eartha passed away. But Tanya sang it in Korea. She's in Seoul, Korea now. She's been there for several months. She directed, starred, and produced a movie, and her editor is Korean, so she's there for 3 months editing it, and she was in her hotel room singing Monotonous with my little piano track, and it's pretty funny. But the shows, we have really, really great performers, and you'll hear a lot of good stuff of Arthur Siegel's. Anyway, push me in another direction.
Well, I used to sing "I'm in Love with Miss Logan" from.
That's one of my favorites. That's by Ronnie Graham. Oh, so I was going to say, "Love is a Simple Thing" is sung by Stephen Brinberg. David, you probably know Stephen, but Allison, do you know who Stephen is?
I know the name.
Stephen Brinberg makes a living impersonating Barbra Streisand, one of the most successful impersonators of the past 25 years. He goes all over the world, but he also does a lot of other people, and he does Love is a Simple Thing as, Betty Davis and Eartha Kitt and a lot of other people, and including these other lyrics you don't usually hear that I have because I have all of Arthur's stuff, and it's fun. Anyway, I'm shutting up.
No, don't. I mean, this is the I'm telling you guys, because this is the way we get. We never end up talking about what we intended to, because
I just ripped it to 400 other things.
I miss our time together. I would go over to Michael's apartment and be in awe of his library, and especially since it's not a huge place. I don't know where he stores it all, but
one word: Dropbox. Now,
I still burn copies of all of my recordings because I'm old school. I'm terrified of not being able to hold on to them and look at the logo of the show and read the liner notes.
Well, of course, my originals, I have those, but anything that's a Xerox, I will copy it, scan it, put it into Dropbox, so I know I can always reprint it if I need to. I have file cabinets, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, built in by Robert Brill. You know who Robert Brill is? Allison, you probably know Robert Brill. Robert Brill designed the set to the revival of Cabaret, major Broadway set designer. And Michael Unger, if you know Michael Unger, the director, 18 years ago, he was a contractor also, and he contracted the renovation of my apartment and said, let's get Robert to design the set to my apartment. He said, everybody said, is it going to be all black? And I said, no. But Robert came up with great ideas, and it's been housing shelves and stuff. And I have a storage building downstairs, so I'm just constantly out of room. I have piles of duplicates I have to send in. But one of the things I have that I love, that I'm proudest of, is I have a lot of the scores to the old Milliken shows. Most of you probably aren't old enough to know what they are, but the Milliken shows, thank you, David. David can explain what they are, but because I inherited the collection, my mentor for 15 years was the musical director and dance arranger Peter Howard. For those of you who don't know Peter Howard, he wrote the dance music to a little show called Chicago. No? He wrote the dance music to Crazy for You, Annie, Barnum, Baby, Carnival, and he conducted many of those shows. And we did a production of Cabaret in 1993 in Italy with Bjork Lee. The three of us went out to Italy for 8 weeks, and perché parlo italiano, because I got the job because I speak Italian pretty fluently. So I have the whole score in Italian. And Peter and I did a lot of things. So when he died 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, I inherited his collection. Peter was the man who taught Rex Harrison how to sing his songs in My Fair Lady. So his son sent me a score, beautiful hardbound score, signed by Rex Harrison, Julie Andrews, Stanley Holloway, Robert Coote, Lerner and Lowe, Moss Hart, Hanya Holm, everybody. But I also have the Green Mansions folders. Green Mansions was a summer resort in the Adirondacks in the 50s, where there was Green Mansions and there was the other one. Where Once Upon a Mattress originated.
Yeah, Ornaments or something like that. Yeah, is that?
Well, Green Mansions is where Strauss and Adams first met and started. Well, I think they knew each other, but they started writing. So I have all this Charles Strauss folder from Peter Howard of music that he wrote. They have an entire section verse that called The Drama, and it goes into Put on a Happy Face, not all with the same lyrics, and not all with the same music, but that was Put on a Happy Face was from this review. And that was 3 years before Bye Bye Birdie, and they put it into Bye Bye Birdie. So things like that. But Peter did the dance music for Dolly. So I have this folder. When people come over here, I say, would you like to sing through this, sight read with this with me? So Rob Schneider brought over the assistant musical director of the Dolly revival with Bette Midler, and I have around 9-10 cut songs from Hello Dolly, most written for Vandergelder, who they decided shouldn't have songs except the one they cut that went back in, Penny in My Pocket. But and they're duets, they're fantastic songs, Jerry Herman songs. Jerry was a very dear friend of mine, and I loved him. I went to college, I said at Columbia, and I did a production of the Scottish play, and I played the porter, and Little Macduff was played by Jane Dorian. Her mother, Carol, went to college with Jerry and was Jerry's best friend and sang all his backers auditions. And my another paper mill story. I remember I got in a stretched limo with Carol and Jerry and went out to Paper Mill to see Mac and Mabel, and where Janet Metz was the Mabel. This is in '88, and I just remember being in the limo with Jerry, and it was after, well, it was a couple of years after Sunday. He knew that I was friends with Sondheim, so he was like, it was not because remember he said this is one for the Hummable Melody when Lacage beat Sunday in the Park, and he said, well, Steve's very handsome. He's a very handsome guy. I said, yeah, whatever, okay. But that was one of my paper mill. And the other story was going to Follies. But I remember I knew where that little pass door is before you get around to the back, Allison, where when you're walking back in that first door there that goes back to right to the dressing rooms. And I would always because I always knew around half the cast of every show, so I just walk back there and hang out with them, even though probably
where the musicians would go out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I see because the actors would often hang out.
Musicians' green room area.
Exactly. Yeah. I just loved going to Paper Mill. Yeah, I love just hanging out and trying to hitch a ride with the van. I don't think I was ever denied a place in the van because I knew everybody in the van, but I would often take the train out to go out there. But those days of Paper Mill.
And you said Janet Metz, isn't she married to Michael Unger?
She is married to Michael Unger, and they were old friends, and that's how it all happened in the first place. My ex was Janet's like childhood best friend growing up, and I'd always hear about her from. In fact, that's how I remember. I was with Michael in the corner, and we ran into 4 people, and only one of them hadn't gone out with Nancy, my ex. So it was Leo Burmester. The late Leo Burmester was the original Thénardier. He was standing with Richard Kind, Michael Unger, and myself, and we'd all gone out with Nancy. And then Rich Kind said, well, I want you to work with me in the producers. This was right after the producers opened, and I started working with Rich. I coached him all the time over the years for Bounce when he did Bounce. In fact, that's a funny story. He was staying at China Phillips and Billy Baldwin's apartment in the Beresford, and they had 2 apartments, one on the ground floor and one up way up high, and he wanted to sing Look Over There from La Cage aux Folles. And I said, well, I don't know if you should sing the song from the show that beat Sunday in the Park with Sondheim's going to be in the room. But I said, okay, go ahead, do it. And he also wanted to do Nothing Like a Dame. I said, yeah, Nothing Like a Dame. That's good. I knew the show, but because I'd seen Wise Guys, but this was Bounce. I think I'm the only person who has the score and the script to Wise Guys, Bounce, Gold, and Roadshow. You probably know Gold. Gold was only in Workshop, and it became Bounce, but it was called only when it was in Workshop. And Annie Morrison, the original Mary and Merrily, was staying here in my apartment while she was rehearsing Gold. So I had that score and script. But
I'll be calling.
Was that Nathan Lane?
That's Wise Guys. That's the first one. Yeah, I saw that at New York Theater Workshop. What were you saying, David?
I said I'll be calling you probably for this music very soon. I have recordings of most of that. But
well, I recorded Wise Guys. I had a little tiny tape recorder. I was in the front row center, sitting with another ex and Roger Sturdivant, and I had the tape recorder out here. And Nancy Opel was on stage, and she could see me. She said, everybody can see the tape recorder, cover it. She was in the middle of the show. She said that, and I went, take it. But it's a pretty good quality because it was right there. And the 2 pianists were Rob Berman and Ted Sperling. And Rob Berman, when Wise Guys was playing, won. I don't know if you all know this. He won $125,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And Regis said, so what are you doing now? Well, I'm working on a show by Stephen Sondheim. And Regis said, Stephen Sondheim, he's very good. Yes, I just remember that so well.
Wow. Well, I worked with Regis Philbin on a cruise ship a million years ago.
Awesome.
That's all I have to contribute to that.
Do you heard this terrible, sad news that just happened an hour ago?
Yes.
So sad about Alex. Alex Trebek passed away. He's such somebody we all felt like was our dear friend.
Our uncle, yeah.
Our uncle, yeah.
Canadian.
Canadian.
We love the Canadians.
Are you Canadian, Allison?
No.
No.
I just like Canadians.
Well, one of my favorite Canadians, two Canadian people I'll bring up, Shannon Lewis, Mark Kudish's wife. When she first moved to New York, she got into Crazy for You when it first opened. This is almost 20 years ago, and she started coaching with me all the time. And I coached her for not Finette. What's the name of the second character in Candide? Not Cunegonde, but Paquette. She was Paquette in the revival on Broadway, and that she's really, besides being an incredible dancer, she's got a great voice and a good actress. And then the other canic I love is Robert Creighton, who I knew again when he first moved to New York. Roger Sturdivant and I were good friends. We saw him play Coco in the Mikado at New York City Opera, and then we just watched him become. And then when he first said, "I'm very fascinated by Cagney," he came over here, and I had some old sheet music duplicates of Cagney stuff, and I said, "Robert, you just like when Clea Blackhurst was working on her Ethel Merman show." I said, "I have some duplicates of this Ethel Merman music, very rare. You need to take it." She was like, "Wow, cool." But Bobby, do you all saw Cagney, the show that he did?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just
amazing.
He's a dear friend of mine. He did a bunch of stuff at Paper Mill, and I introduced. I didn't introduce him to his wife, but but they ended up in a show. Like he ended up doing a show, and he probably taking a small part just because he wanted just to do something, and that's when they met. He'd been doing so many shows, but
that's a reason to do that. I know he did.
They always say, I'm responsible for their getting together, which
this was after Funny Girl.
Oh yeah. He had a different wife. Yeah.
Well, people do take jobs for the. We need to be active. This is why we do what we do.
There's a great argument for taking a job. What Allison just said.
Also, you just never know what something is going to lead to, and I think a lot of people right now are taking jobs just so they can keep their health insurance. So I mean that ship sailed several years ago, and I just finished a virtual job where I was able to get my weeks. And those jobs are, to use that phrase from South Pacific, as rare as hen's teeth right now. So it doesn't really matter how the size of the part to a lot of us right now. I was amazed at the talent that they were able to get for this particular production, because people need to work. Which this is why this show has been so important. I hope you guys know. That our theater community has appreciated this so much, to feel back in touch with us, and so that I no need to wax sentimental yet. We're not near at the end of the show, but I just want to thank you for doing that, because everybody appreciates this so much. It's a lot of work for us, but we enjoy it too. I look forward to Sunday afternoons because of this. So. And I feel like I'm in the room with you guys now.
I've got to move my computer because I'm running out of juice.
Okay. Well,
Keep talking.
Well, that's all right. If we lose you for a second, you'll be back. So
no, I'm here.
So I feel like I'm immersed in theater history right now, with everything. That all these names that are just people that I either love, admire, worship. Still with us, not with us, that you've worked with, Michael, and I know you've worked with, David. I mean, I'm just, the rich history of not only Broadway, but theater, and the fact that it's a big vacuum right now, that little is going on, but it's so good to remind ourselves that, yes, we're gonna keep making history,
Yep. And we're going to reinvent in a way that, I don't think any of us could foresee that there would be this much activity before they reopen the theaters that's happening in this kind of forum. And it is a challenge to be a director or an actor in this forum, but we're learning the tricks. I'm sure, Allison, that casting was moving in a direction where we were using this kind of virtual thing so much more. I'm not afraid of it the way I was.
We're forced into it, right? You had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I started teaching right away. I started teaching with this company called Right Way Coaching, and it's mostly children. And I think it's been an incredible source of comfort for the parents to have their kids do something other than school. And because they all had all these shows and camps that they needed that they didn't have,
Sure.
you know. So it's just it's amazing how much you get out of teaching when they're in their homes rather than school. I don't necessarily think it should be in lieu of or in replacement of down the road, but it's certainly an option that I didn't think that we would have thought that we had. And it's kind of great, honestly.
Well, I've been coaching people too that are not from our metropolitan area, and
all over Florida is my big, yeah.
Yeah, and the the outlook on things in different parts of the country is very different too. Some of them haven't been affected as deeply as we have been right away. So they've been soldiering on in a way that we didn't at first. But I think we've led the pack in showing how reinvention is going to work for our live theater. And God willing, it won't be too much longer before we start to make some progress. I have some things down the pike that I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. And yeah.
Can I ask Allison a question? Because this is something I've been very curious about. That even before the pandemic, there were more and more, we call them self-tape auditions. Now this is mostly for TV and film, but there is a trade-off for an actor. Oh, I don't have to go to so-and-so's office. I can just sit in my go to Actors Connection, but I also miss that connection with the casting person who's in the room and can give me notes and can help me get on track with it. And that must be the same for you. It saves time just to have people sending tapes to you, but by the same token, you don't get to interact with them in the room. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I think there is something that's going on with EcoCast Live and Zoom, where there are callbacks that are like this. Like we're live right now talking to each other through StreamYard. There's probably things through Cast It. There's things through EcoCast. You can use Zoom. There's different platforms where you can actually have a live audition with somebody, like if you were to Skype it, right? It's the same concept. It just depends on the Wi-Fi. You're at the mercy of people's Wi-Fis. Right. But there's whole systems being created so that this could end up being not necessarily the entire future, especially for theater. Eventually, you're going to have to see somebody in the room. Yes. But at the beginning stages of something, I was supposed to cast 4 or 5 shows this year, at least. My tours that I cast every year, and I was ready to start casting online because I didn't know how long. I was like, the pandemic's only going to last, like a couple weeks, right? I was like, I can start auditioning people online. I can start doing self-tapes. I know how to do Zoom now. Like I kept coming up with ideas, and then it just became more and more clear that it wasn't going to happen. So, but we just keep trying to come up with ways to make this possible. And also, there used to be so many rules about self-taping. And I remember I finally was just saying, just start doing it. Just start doing something. Just start pretending that this is your opportunity to master self-taping. Like, why take this opportunity and just sit around waiting for it to open up again when you have nothing better to do than to play with your iPhone and get a tripod and get your ring light and start realizing that your iPhone actually is a better camera than your computer. You have to use the computer for Zoom, but if you're going to do a self-tape, pull that iPhone out and do it that way. And actually have somebody film it. Use the side that's not the selfie side. Don't do this. There's a lot of things you can teach people, but honestly, the self-taping thing is something that a lot of people have sat on and just, I don't like it. And then they think they finally are like, okay, I'll figure it out.
Yes.
I was terrified of it and hated it. And when I was on the other side of it as a director, if I was sent a self-tape, even if they were brilliant, I was very frustrated because there was no give and take. I couldn't ask for an adjustment or to find out whether our personalities would mesh, whether I would be good for them and vice versa. And for musicals, if you don't have an accompanist or a piano in your apartment, it's practically, impossible. but we're getting there.
The MP3s are not the end of the world, you know. I mean, I've been coaching a lot of singing. As long as they get a good track done by their coach who knows their stuff. Like, there's so many people using like karaoke tracks, and I'm like, that's not how you sing the song. Get it done for you. Like,
because you don't want to hear a full orchestra, you just want to hear a piano. Right.
I want to hear them sing. And I think, and it's not just that I don't want a full orchestra, I also want it geared towards their performance, right?
Right.
Their phrasing, I mean, there's obviously you don't rewrite the song, but you do a good cut for somebody all the time, right, Michael?
Sure, we pianists get called all the time to make tracks for people, and I send them to you as an MP3. I have these little, I would go over and show you too, but I'm afraid Tony will get rid of me if I go over and forget them. They have these little tiny Bose speakers that I paid $10 in Shanghai for, but I'm sure you can get them. They completely fill my apartment. If you watch that Arthur Siegel show, I open with a song that I played piano on, that I sang myself. I recorded my accompaniment, played it through my phone on my speakers. I actually recorded it on my computer, which I know is taboo, Allison, but I did it anyway, and it actually came out really well. But I filled the room with sound rather than playing it on my phone sound, which a lot of people are now recording songs for me for these concerts I've been doing by singing live onto a phone. And it's just so much better to have buy these little tiny speakers or anything that you can make better sound. It's so easy. Yeah, it's with Bluetooth.
I mean, we're all learning. Everybody's still like, the technology is still coming together. But I mean, in terms of auditioning, I can figure out pretty quickly, watching people sing on a computer, what's going on with them vocally. It's not like, it's the difference between that and a live room is literally nothing. I can still.
One thing I say when I'm coaching people, I always say they should look a little above their heads, because if you look at their heads, it looks. But I think for auditioning for TV, for this kind of thing on video, you should look right at the camera, because it looks weird if you're looking off.
I don't love when people make me their scene partner, but I also think that when I say don't look right at the camera, they start doing this. I'm like, no, I don't. I meant don't look right into the camera. I mean,
you're the first person who said I'm intrigued to hear what your thought are, but I find that the more you look right at the camera, the more we feel it's not. I thought you're getting too embarrassed. That's why I tell them not to look you in the eye, because you don't want to. You want to be able to watch them.
It depends on what you're auditioning for. If it's a cabaret type setting or it's performing a song, and
right? Of course,
is your scene partner, yes.
Right.
But if you're acting in a scene with somebody, you don't want to be the scene partner. You want to be the observer. Like, you know, there's a fourth wall there, right?
Well, I would say stay on your camera focus. Like, don't go over here. Just go over here, and then occasionally over here. And if there's an important point, you can make it there. But
honestly, it's, you know what though, what I'm looking for isn't like where you're looking at the camera.
Right. If you're not getting the job because of that, you're in trouble. Right.
Right. If your focus is your focus and it's connected, I don't care where you're looking. Well, I mean, unless I lose your eyes completely.
It's great to hear. You are one of a few casting directors we've had on this show, and it's been very heartening for me to hear. Because you were mentioning the fact that at the beginning of a casting this way, years ago, we would get so many instructions about how to have the right background and all of this and everything. That it would almost make you a little gun shy, and say, "Oh, I can't invest all that kind of money." And why don't they? Because they're always fell back on the actor to, hire the coach.
You're not a technical person. You're an actor, right? And so, we want to help you. We want to help you.
Yeah.
We want to help you. Your technology is there for you, right? But I'm more interested in your work.
Great. It's great to hear, and that's what the other folks who have said this. So we actors out there, we shouldn't be gun shy. We should embrace and enjoy and learn from. And So
when I first started doing these Zoom classes and stuff, my computer had no sound, so I bought a new computer. But like for a while, I was using my iPhone.
Yeah.
And I had it all set up, and it worked, but I didn't have full access to the Zoom experience until I got a computer, and it made it work. But like, we're all figuring it out. Yeah. We're all learning, it's not that I was like unaware that the computer was a better option. It was just that I needed a new computer, and it took a while.
During this time period too, it was time. And since our lives revolve around it, but what's so nice about this, when we have this somewhat in our rearview mirror, we're going to appreciate the other thing so much, being able to have that contact. And so I think that I'm hoping and praying that is what the audiences will feel about live theater and cabaret and opera and concerts and all of that too, and will embrace it so much because they've missed it. So,
but I do think really quickly, I do think having the ability to teach online has opened it up to the entire country rather than just people who could afford to come to New York for classes.
Well, listen, it saves you a couple bucks on the subway when you're auditioning, even if you live in Harlem.
Or a couple of $100 on the plane. I mean, I've been coaching people from Utah, so people who wouldn't ordinarily think of coaching online. So I think more people are starting to do that.
So, listen, guys, we could go on and on. We're going to get to the portion of our show where we take a little bit of an intermission. It's just a few minutes long, where we're going to play a little music that Michael and I made together so long ago. But we also, before we take the intermission, we do a quiz question that we open it up to our viewers. And besides the major event that happened over these last few days in the country, we not only have a new president-elect and vice president-elect, but we also have, it's the time of year where Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS announces their brand new Christopher Radko Broadway Legends Christmas tree ornament. Now, I can tell you that I have had every one of these since they came out. So my Christmas tree is probably worth more than the apartment right now. But we look forward to the announcement every year. And if you haven't heard who the selection is this year, we'd like to show you a picture of who it is, and then you can tell us who this Broadway legend is, who could be on your Christmas tree this year. There it is. This is not the quiz question, but some of them are more recognizable than others. I think the second one, the second year they had Carol Channing, and it was so obvious who this was. So do you venture a guess who that might be?
Glenn Close?
Yes, Glenn Close in Sunset Boulevard. So, those of you who have the bucks and want to, it's a tax deductible contribution, and order your ornament from Broadway Cares. But this leads up to the quiz question this week. Glenn Close won a Tony Award for Sunset Boulevard, and of course did it twice on Broadway. I know you'll know this, Michael. What other two Broadway musicals did Glenn Close appear in?
I know one.
And don't answer until we can get our audience. One. And then if nobody answers, I have a guess who's going to answer, because we have one fan who answers correctly almost every week.
Good.
So I'm expecting to hear from her very soon. But we'll give you a few minutes to think about it, the rest of you. And meanwhile, we're going to play an obscure Irving Berlin tune that Michael and I recorded together a couple of years ago. It's still out there in the ether. We hope that someday more people will hear it. But today our audience is going to get to hear it. Michael is on the piano and musical directing, and that yours truly is hamming it up like Al Jolson, I think, at one time. So here it is. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes with the answer to the quiz question.
I know a professor of great renown, and he is the loneliest man in town. He's as smart as a man can be, but he never has company. Why is he the loneliest man in town? He ain't got rhythm. Every night he sits in the house alone, 'cause he ain't got rhythm. Every night he sits there and wears a frown. He attracted some attention when he found the fourth dimension, but he ain't got rhythm, so no one's with him, the loneliest man in town. A lonely man is he, bending over his books, His wife and family keep giving him dirty looks 'cause he ain't got rhythm. When they call him up, it's to call him down. With a daring aviator, he encircled the equator. But he ain't got rhythm, as no one's with him, the loneliest man in town. With a problem scientific, he's colossal and terrific. But he ain't got rhythm, so no one's with him, the loneliest man in town. A lonely man is he, bending over his books. His wife and family keep giving him dirty looks 'cause he ain't got rhythm. When they call him up, it's to call him down. In the month of January, he compiled a dictionary. But he ain't got rhythm, so no one's with him, the loneliest man in town.
Yeah, I always think when I imitate Al Jolson, I sound like Ethel Merman.
A little Ethel Merman there, yeah, I'd say so.
A little bit there.
Now, did you do something with Michael Kostroff there also?
We were working on it, and we ran out of time because we had to go and catch a plane. And
He's always doing TV shows, you know.
Well, and we were also doing a lot of ad libs in there that you said, oh, we got to save that, we got to do that again. So it's somewhere in your archives, but it's unfinished.
Right, I got to mix it, yeah, and finish it, right.
But it was great fun. We'll go back in the studio and do some more.
You want to tell them about the yip thing we did?
Yeah. We for those of you who don't know, I was a child actor, and one of the things that I worked on when I was very young was what would have been Yip Harburg's last Broadway musical called "What a Day for a Miracle," about the Children's Crusades. And I inherited this role from Scott Jacoby, who grew out of it. And so I was doing backers auditions for this show with Yip Harburg. He was in his 80s, and I was, 11 or 12. And so I had these songs that had never been recorded, and I brought them to Michael, and we put them down. And so I don't know. Hopefully we'll have people being able to hear some lost music by Yip Harburg before long too. So it never got done. And it's interesting to note that I read more recently that Michael Bennett was working on a musical about the Children's Crusades right around that same time. I don't think they knew that each other were doing this, and what an interesting collaboration that might have been. But that never happened either. So anyway, back to the, we didn't, I think our fan who usually answers the question was not tuning in today. I think maybe my hiatus for 3 weeks made her lose track of the show. But anyway, I think I do see some answers in the private chat. So what were the two shows that Glenn Close did, musicals, besides Sunset Boulevard?
Do you want me to answer one?
Yes, you got
I
one.
only know one, which is I played this role in high school, FYI. Charity Barnum, Cherry Barnum in Barnum, with Jim Dale as Barnum. Yeah.
Cherry Barnum, Chary. Yeah, Cherry.
Absolutely. And Steve, I say you did Barnum at Art Park.
Art Park. Did you ever work at Art Park?
I remember it from many years ago, but no, I never did work there.
Isn't it upstate?
It's up near Buffalo, Niagara.
Yeah, my friend's from Niagara Falls, and he worked there a lot. My old roommate from college, because I went to Syracuse. So.
Oh, so you're from yes.
I'm not from there, but yeah.
Seats, and then they open up the back wall, and people sit out on the lawn. I mean,
oh wow!
To do, you're trying to do quite a lot of Roman terracotta.
The museum song, yeah.
A microphone with anybody. It was an experience.
Yeah. I don't know the other show she did though. I'm sure Michael knows.
Michael knows.
I don't think I do.
Really?
Go ahead and tell us.
Well, she was in Rex, the Richard Ross.
Oh, of course. I have the record right over there, right?
Yeah, she had a smaller role.
I saw it at Kennedy Center. What am I thinking? Yes.
She played one of Henry's daughters, not the one that became Elizabeth I. That was Penny Fuller, but yeah, and she and Penny and the little boy whose name escapes me right now sang "Christmas at Hampton Court." So I think that was the only thing that she sang in the show, but yeah, so she was in 2 Broadway musicals before she hit it big with Sunset Boulevard. So,
but she sang. I mean, Cherry was a huge part. She sang like 12 songs,
definitely
3 or 4
the
songs.
lady. Yeah. But
Cherry was Jessica Phillips.
Oh, I love her.
Oh, I love her. Yeah, me too.
She's wonderful.
Yeah.
She's great hair. She has hair like mine. She's great hair. I love her. Yeah. She
great.
actually worked for the company I work for, Big League. She played Mrs. Walker.
Tommy?
Yeah.
Yeah. She can do anything.
She really can. And she's a wonderful film and TV actress, too.
Yes, she is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is the point where we kind of look ahead. I know it's a terrifying thing to say, what's coming next, when we all don't know right now. But I think we all have our finger in something. Michael, you told us about
the Saturday night concert.
Saturday night concert. But there's also, for people who don't know of your work as an archivist, you have a whole series of records called Lost Broadway, where all these songs that were never recorded from Broadway musicals are finally committed to tape. What do we call it now? And they're wonderful. I have every one in my collection. And you also did a wonderful CD called Hamlish Uncovered, which is all this undiscovered music by Marvin.
That I did with Craig Carnelia, and I produced that together. We got people like Kelly O'Hara and Tony Sheldon and all kinds of wonderful people to do songs that have never been recorded from Marvin Hamlish's work. In fact, we developed that into a show. We did it at 54 Below on what would have been Marvin's 75th birthday around a year and a half ago. And we had Penny Fuller and Rupert Holmes and Craig Carnelia and his daughter and Aaron Davey and Leah Horowitz, really wonderful people. And Mrs. Hamlish introduced it and talked to him. She was lovely. And then we did it just almost exactly a year ago in Hollywood at Catalina's, where I got Alan Bergman, who was 94 at the time, to come up and read a letter that Barbra Streisand wrote for the evening. And then he sang The Way We Were, which was really incredible. And Melissa Manchester got up and did Ice Castles, Nancy Dussault, Eileen Graff, Faye DeWitt. We had really, really wonderful people. So
I don't know any of these names. I
know I have to explain who each of these people is, but
I know who they are.
And Allison can tell you, but I mean, I love Nancy, and Nancy and I drove up to her house in Oxnard, and we're on the water with her dog. We rehearsed, and she sang a song. I mean, these are unknown songs. I think she sang a song, I want to say from Koch, the movie Koch, that Marvin. I just started watching actually The Prisoner of Second Avenue, which Marvin wrote the score for. If you know the movie from '75, the Neil Simon show. And I
saw the play on Broadway when I was a kid.
Sure. I mean, Marvin wrote great stuff, and I have, Craig and Marvin, besides writing Sweet Smell of Success, they wrote a play with songs called Imaginary Friends, which starred those great musical theater comedy actresses, Swizzy Kurtz and Cherry Jones. Mm-hmm. And I'm kidding, nobody laughed, right?
Well, Swizzy almost did Scandal. I mean, or was doing Scandal. So that's
Scandal, the Jimmy Webb show. Or you mean Scandalous?
No, it was a Michael Bennett workshop.
That's Scandal. That's the Jimmy Webb. Jimmy Webb wrote the score to that. Yeah, but they did that. But then after that, Marvin and Craig Carnelia were writing the score to Bullets Over Broadway, and they have a lot of songs in the can. I actually have all of them. They're really, really good. I'm sure. And we actually recorded Leah Horowitz singing one of them on the CD, but Woody Allen fired them because he realized he could use songs that were out of copyright from the 1910s and 20s and do it and not have to pay royalties. So I actually provided all the sheet music for Bullets Over Broadway because Glenn Kelly would say, we need this obscure song from 1918. We're like, there you go. And of course, everybody knows those songs now because now they're singing. What's the one, Allison? I need a hot dog.
Oh God. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're old songs from the 20s that didn't quite work in the show, but but if you look at what Craig and Marvin wrote, it was really wonderful.
So Sweet Smell is amazing. I love it.
So Allison, it brings to mind a question that, this is, I usually don't ask a question like this at this point in the show, but, and you've been away from auditioning musical theater people for a while, so probably everything will feel fresh. But what are those songs that you just don't want to hear anymore at a music?
God, I have a list I just made, and I don't want to upset anybody by listing it because there's
No, you should tell them.
All right, so because I'm auditioning teenagers, okay? And anybody out there, if you've recorded the song and you send it to me, do not take it personally. I'm still listening as if it's a brand new song to me.
Good.
Don't take it personally. But wait, where's my list? I'm getting it off my notes. Hold on.
Superboy and Superman and the Invisible Girl.
No, a little bit, but that's not even as bad. Okay. One Perfect Moment. No, it's High School Musical. So, I mean, that's High School Musical. It's called Teenage Musical. So a lot of people are using songs from Bring It On. I get it. One Perfect Moment is being used a lot. She Used to Be Mine is being sung a lot, like endlessly.
And we're not knocking the songs. We're just knocking.
Hold on. And they're all sung by teenagers. You get
right, exactly. Burn from Hamilton.
A couple, but not too many. My Grand Plan, which I love, but a lot of people are singing it.
From the show that was just nominated for Tony.
Lightning Thief. Lightning Thief. Yep. Lost in the Brass, which is a great song.
Great song.
It. Dead Mom, Dead Mom, Dead Mom, Dead Mom. Love it, but it's a lot. Little Miss Perfect from The Prom. Killer Instinct also from Bring It On. Stupid with Love from Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Requiem from Dear Evan Hansen, I believe. The History of Wrong Guys. The Life I Never Led, which isn't that so much as others, but I hear that more in regular auditions. That's the Sister Act song. The Nun belting song. Get Out and Stay Out, not as much as usual. World Burn. That's the
from Mean Girls. Yeah,
Mean Girls. Regina George. Heather's Veronica song. I don't know what it's called, but it's a lot of people are singing it. Waving Through a Window, which I actually really like. So, What It Means to Be a Friend and Lamest Place in the World. But those songs make sense that they're singing because a lot of my kids are like, 12, 13 years old. But those are the ones that everybody's doing. And then there's the song, Good Girl Winnie Foster is being sung a lot.
Do you ever hear songs from children's letters to God?
Yes. 4 hours, 6 Hours as a Princess.
Yeah, which I think is good. Yeah.
But it's a good song. They're good songs. No, but I mean, like a lot of these are good songs. It's just after I've heard them over and over and over again, I'm like, okay, now I just have to get to the end.
And, I don't give my student lesser known songs because they're lesser known, but because you won't be the 10th person in any given hour. This is what I call.
Yeah, I always say, like, if you want to sing something from Thoroughly Modern Millie, go to Mac and Mabel instead. You're going to get a same song.
But I'm sure you hear Wherever He Ain't a lot too, don't you?
No. And then my other song is there's a lesser known Rodgers and Hammerstein song called The Next Time It Happens, which was also in Flower Drum Song. That's a great replacement.
No, it was in State Fair.
It was in State Fair and in Flower Drum Song. It was both.
Not Flower Drum Song, Pipe Dream.
But it was original, but it was put into both of them.
No, it was in Pipe Dream. There was never in Flower Drum Song. It was in Pipe Dream, then it was in State Fair.
It was in Flower Drum Song.
They put it in the revival.
They put it in the revival, right? That's right. But it was originally written for Pipe Dream.
That's what drives me crazy when I have students that say, "Oh, this song comes from Crazy for You." And I say, no.
No, better yet, I'm sure Allison has heard this a lot. This song from Glee.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't.
I remember the days when every baritone would go in and sing "Why Can't I Walk Away" from Maggie Flynn. So, you had to have something else in your book because
such a great song, though.
Everybody ahead of you sang it, but there's a lesson in that too. I remember changing my song because a guy ahead of me did the thing I was planning to do. And it wasn't a particularly, well-known song, but I could hear on the other side of the room it was going over well. And then I said, I can't do that. And it rattled me. And I went in and I did something that was perfectly fine. But I think if I had stuck to my original choice and done it my way, I always think of what Barbara Cook said. There's always someone that sings better, that looks better, if you do it your way, you have no peer.
I don't think anybody sang better than Barbara Cook.
But she used to, when she was very young, she thought, this one sings better and that one sings better. But the journey was, if you do it your way. And that's what I tell my students now.
I agree. I agree. I don't care if I hear the same song over and over and over again. In fact, there is something in the repetition of hearing a song being done so many times that if somebody does something unique and different with it and makes it their own, I have a point of view on that. So
I would tell a story of 30, almost 30 years ago, 1992. I was playing auditions for a German production of Annie Get Your Gun, and the director, the late Jeffrey Dunn, was directing. And Jeffrey and I had been sitting listening to I Can't Say No's all day, and this girl came in, and we just looked at each other and went, "Wait a minute, is this like really good, or are we just so tired? Can you come back to a callback?" "Yes, I'm graduating from college next week, but I can come back to a callback." Little Carrie Butler went on to star with John Bolton in the European German tour of Oklahoma. Oh, not Annie Get Your Gun, Oklahoma. And I had done Annie Get Your Gun myself there in Germany, but it was great. You have to remember, really pay attention, because somebody's going to be great like that. What Allison can do, and say, "Wait, she's really good."
Well,
right.
You don't want to do something that is so obscure that they remember the material rather than the performer either.
But that's maybe when you sing a song that nobody's ever heard of, sometimes it either plays into your favor because it makes you memorable, or you're more sitting there going, "What is that song?"
Yeah.
And also the other thing is if it's an unknown song, we don't know if it's right. We don't know if the words are made up. We don't know if they've taken the key and messed it. Some songs are so dissonant and all over the place, or spoke song, or all that stuff. So you have no idea. No, if you can tell if it's because there's a lot of dissonant stuff out there. I mean, the first
you've got to trust your coach.
The first few times I heard Adam Gettle, I was like, I have no idea if this is right.
But then you trust your coach to tell you that it's a good song. But also, I'll say that Roger Sturdivant used to say, and I've told my students often to do this, to identify your song before you're singing it. Sometimes during the intro of the song, you say that Hugh Martin wrote this song in 1948 for Look Mom Dancin'. They can just write down Hugh Martin's song. That said, I'll tell you that James Lapine told me that Sondheim wants to hear songs he knows already at auditions. He doesn't want to hear songs. And
that makes sense.
There are so many songs out there that people know, but that aren't overdone. Dave Clemens used to rattle off songs that everybody knows that nobody sings. He would always bring up Dave Clemens, casting director, for those of you who didn't know. He mentioned Allison, Love Me Tender. It's a song everybody knows, but nobody sings and everybody loves. There are tons of songs like that, standards,
Yeah.
Well, I had a young lady come in when I was off-Broadway doing the Fantastics, and she came in and sang much more, and she didn't know the words. And of course, it's also important to know who's in the room that you're auditioning for, because I had heard that song already 8 times that week, and I love it. But if you don't know the words, don't sing it for the guy who's in the show right now. And we have to do our homework. So we're reminded of these things now. And I mean, it's great to hear a coach and a casting director. And Steve, we're taking notes as actors are right now. And so I could go on with each one of you for about 90 more minutes.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the time you've taken to enlighten our theater community and entertain us. I know I've had a great time. I feel a little bit more connected, as I do every Sunday when I do this show. And if we have a couple more minutes, if you have one thing that you're working on that we're going towards, I know, Michael, you've talked about your concert, and Steve, you're gonna be back on Mrs. Maisel before long, and Allison, you're doing a movie, so maybe we don't even have to ask the question. But if there's anything else you want to enlighten us with that's coming up before we go off the air, please speak up. But otherwise, my guests for next week, we have the wonderful writer and theater critic and historian Peter Felicia is going to be joining me. And I also have a special guest by the name of Kim Kaldenberg, who the name you may not know initially, but her parents were theater royalty. And collectively, I think they were in about 45 Broadway musicals. So she's got some backstage stories. She grew up backstage in shows like Follies and The Most Happy Fella and on and on. So I've asked her to come on and share some stories of her parents, who were Helen Blunt and Keith Kaldenberg.
Oh.
And we have a surprise guest coming too. I don't want to answer it. I don't want to announce that yet.
And David, can you tell everybody how much weight Peter's lost? He's lost 50, 60 pounds?
Well, I haven't seen
that, Allison?
But,
I didn't know that, no. Good for him.
He's lost a lot of weight.
But he's from my neck of the woods, so I always get familiar. I'm from Massachusetts, so yeah.
Right.
So he has that accent that I love so much.
I adore him, and he's been a great champion of my work over the years, and so I'm very excited to have him on here. And of course, I think that if I had Michael and Peter on the same show, I would never get a word in edgewise.
I think it's probably true. Yeah.
But I hope it won't be too long before we get in the studio again together and start swapping stories. And Allison, before I'm in front of you auditioning for a project you're casting, and Steve, to share the stage with you, we did a reading not that long ago.
Right, down at the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah. It had a cast of about 350, and I think when it went on to a next production, both of our roles were written out.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, because it was a wonderful piece, but it was another Holocaust play.
It was very heavy, and Joe Disher was the director.
Yes.
Joe. Yeah.
But as the economics in the theater dictate, there's no budget for that many people on a Broadway stage, let alone I think what they were aiming for was off-Broadway. But it was a great group of talented people.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I hope to share the stage or the rehearsal room.
I hope we do too. Yes, I hope we get to. We will.
Well, thank you all for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Playoff Music, which is another Michael Levine at the piano from Merrily We Roll Along. So I think it could be very apt theme music for this show in general.
That's true. Yeah.
So, he knows exactly what
you're playing. Yeah. It's a cut song from Merrily.
Be well, stay well. I hope we'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, David.
We'll see you next week on Beyond the Green Room.
Awfully glad that you came. We're awfully glad you were with us for the night. Now tell your waiter what everybody wants. Thank you for coming. To say goodbye is a shame. Woo-hoo. We'd say hello, but we said that at the start. So all we'll say is good night, and from the heart, thank you for slumming the show. We knew might tweak a toe or two, and if you thought our taste was rank, that's why the show's called Frankly Frank. So please remember the name, and if you liked us, then while we have your ear, would you go home and tell everyone we're here? Make us a trend. Good night from Ted and Beth and Frank and friend. The end.